It's the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and kick things over to Brian Steinloggy with Choice Solutions.
Hey, thanks, Ellie, and welcome. My name is Brian Steinlage. I'm one of the partners, and also too, I co-lead up our sales team. I take our team as we're going down into the southern states of Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas, as well as Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. So excited for you all to join today. Excited to talk about these technologies. I'm afraid the image on the screen might ruin the sandwich we all brought for lunch today, but like I said, excited that you guys get a chance to experience some of the Midwestern beef coming out of our customers' fairway meat. So really, like I said, it's a great story, and glad that you guys get a chance to enjoy some of their product here. Some of you might be familiar with Choice, but if not, we're going to go real quick. Choice was founded back in 1985 by Jim Steinlage, and really it was on two principles of doing the right thing and treating others like we want to be treated. So here's a picture of our team here back in April. We got a chance to bring from all across the coast into Kansas City to, like I said, to share what Jim calls fun and fellowship. So a great team, great organization, and excited to have them into Kansas City. Where Choice serves is that we're headquartered out of Kansas City. However, we have offices from Cedar Rapids down to Dallas, as well as from Indiana down to Fort Lauderdale. And so over the last 5 years, we've had the privilege of serving over, I can share, 750 customers across 46 states. So really blessed, really thankful for those opportunities. A lot of times it's the skill and expertise of our team that is taking us into opportunities outside of the general territories we serve, and with technologies like we're going to discuss today. The why we're in business, really right now, the hybrid workspace, and with the evolution of the 5 generations of workers in the workplace, all of them are still looking for a similar thing. They're wanting to be productive and empowered. They want to have that high speed, that anywhere access. They want to have a consistent experience, whether they're accessing it from a coffee shop, from the office, or from home. However, just in the yin to that yang, or also to the businesses that are serving them, they want to make sure that they can use those technologies to attract and retain key talent. They want to make sure that they can keep that with that consistent experience, they can keep those users engaged. But most importantly, it's security and making sure that they have the security controls over that. So it's a balance between what the users are asking for and demanding as we're trying to grow those teams and attract them, but also too, we want to make sure most importantly that we keep them safe and doing their jobs in their business. The Every customer we come across is somewhere on this cloud transformation, and so a lot of them, we saw, and this is the last 10 years, they put the toe in the water with technologies like Office 365, which will be one of the topics today. It seems like the number two item that people were always evaluating was unified communications and also to backup. So very timely on the discussion here. But then even users are start looking through and evaluating workloads. But most importantly, they're looking to simplify their operations. They cannot continue to do the bigger, better, faster with the costly the three-tier infrastructures. And so they're looking at more of a usage-based consumption, something that's scalable and flexible. And I think that those are some of the things that the cloud offerings that the cloud model can offer them. And so that's what they're looking for. But most importantly, still security's got to be at the mainstay in the heart of all that. So what Choice does is working with customers. I mean, the things we hear, struggling the day to day, kind of just trying to keep the lights on. Also, trying to not only attract and retain talent, but also to train that talent up for the next generation technologies. And so it's something that they're trying to do to grow the business, but also to maintain the business. But also in doing that usually with a limit, they usually don't have the headcount or the budgets to grow those headcounts. So they're having to have users put on multiple hats. And so, like I said, that could then impede maybe the progress they're making on some key initiatives for the business. And so usually these are some of the dilemmas that the customers are sharing with us, the challenges they're working through. And so that's where we come along with our team. Like I said, we have advisory services, which are senior level architects that can meet with them if they have strategic initiatives around like maybe end user compute or basically maybe a hybrid cloud infrastructure. For a lot of the customers that are just looking for buying and selling, we can work with them on technology acquisition. We're helping them evaluate maybe next generation technologies. Once again, not doing a bigger, better, faster, but what's a technology that's approaching the space like backup, and something that we get to talk about today, what Rubrik and AssureDP have done is not coming in just trying to replace and give you a system that just has bigger drives and maybe a little bit faster speeds, but dramatically changing the way you approach backup. And then that sets you up to have a different conversation about continuity and disaster recovery in the future. And all those can be done as a service. But we work with those customers on evaluating those solutions. And then also too, we have the professional services that can help them, assess it, blueprint it, architect it, deploy it, and support it. Some of the clients, like we talked about on the previous slide, they might have a challenge on their current team on not only deploying but maybe maintaining. And so that's where we can come along with our managed services group. And so we have a 24 by 7, 365 knock sock, and so which is SOC 2 compliant. And we have a lot of trained resources that I always say we can take our team, our tools, and our technology and then help in an operating model, help either maybe fill a gap on a short-term basis or maybe for a long-term either segment of their business or some customers, their entire IT. We can help manage that for them and deliver that as a service. So allows their IT resources to focus on things that are advancing the business, not just maintaining the business. And so we're really coming along and not to replace their jobs, but to partner with the resources you have to help them, like I said, do things that actually help the business, not just maintaining and keeping the lights on. What customers are always telling us is that, they're looking for knowledge and expertise. They're looking for more of a consultative approach. A lot of things that really, I think, a trademark for us is our team are genuine. They care. We've had the pleasure and privilege of serving some of our customers and some of you on the call here for 10, 20, some of you 25 plus years. And so that's really comes through in the team and the way they work with you. And it's not just because it can do it, doesn't mean it should do it. And really trying to make sure that we're finding the right solutions, really aspiring to be more of a technology advisor, not just somebody you're buying and selling hardware and software through. And so our team is a phenomenal resource. They got a proven track record. And that's something that, and also too, getting a chance to work with some of the best technologies in the space, what we consider best of breed, that are really shifting and disrupting the spaces in which they operate. And the two of them we get to talk about today is Assure DP and Rubrik. So really excited for this discussion here. So let me stop the share. I want to get a chance to introduce you guys to some of the team members that we're going to be presenting with us. We got Randy Kern. Randy is our Director of Cloud Services here at Choice Solutions. We have Andrew Ava. Andrew is the CTO of Americas for Assure DP. And then we have Greg Hooper. Greg is the MSC Solutions Architect. So a lot of talent, a lot of knowledge within this hybrid cloud in the backup space. So gentlemen, thank you guys for all joining. So I'll hand it over to you guys.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Brian. So I'm very excited to be here today, talk to you guys a little bit about who we are as a company before I pass it over to Greg. So Assured Data Protection, we're a global company. We've got headquarters in US and the UK. I'm actually sitting in London right now, enjoying some of our UK brethren. We've got about 200 years of backup experience amongst the senior staff here at Assured. We've been doing backup and DR for most of our adult lives, as we like to say. We've got quite a few customers, over 45 different countries around the world. And we deliver our services almost exclusively through the channel. So like wonderful partners like Choice Solutions is really how we get to our customers. And we do that for all the reasons that Brian just described, right? We are big believers in having a high touch, high value service where we can really get to know our customers through our partners and be a part of their IT dream and their IT solution as they're driving forward from a data protection, cyber resiliency perspective. So what do we specifically offer? We're specifically around data backup and recovery with a focus on business continuity, disaster recovery. And that space has evolved. We've always been really about protecting people's data from adverse events, and with the main adverse events these days being malicious attacks. Cyber resiliency as a terminology has really become a big part of our verbiage, but really we've been doing that for our whole careers, right? It's really been about helping customers protect themselves against the unknown of what's out there and what may be impacting their world. So what are our managed services? So again, we're talking about managed backup. Managed backup is powered by Rubrik. The Rubrik services really is the core of what we built our company around. We picked them just over 7 years ago and have been very pleased with our selection. We are exclusively that shop, and they've been an excellent partner and really an industry leader, not only by our own choice, but as dictated by the industry itself. Gartner has them in the upper right for at least the last 3 years. It's really been a pleasure to work with them and been able to bring such quality products to our customers, and then lay on top of that our managed services to make sure that all of the things are functioning properly and customers are able to realize all the benefits of the solution. Business continuity is extending your on-prem to data centers for being able to provide not only just the ability to recover within our data center, but then also full disaster recovery services in the event that you have a full site destruction. And then, of course, layered in there is cyber resiliency, like we were talking earlier. As the landscape has changed in that environment, it allows us to get much deeper into understanding what's happening from the perspective of looking at the backup data. We can look at not only stuff that's been backed up on-prem, but as well as stuff that's been backed up through M365, like we're going to discuss and see a demo of today, around how has that data been modified and what has been changed inside of your environment, as well as what does your data consist of, to really leverage all of that information that we know about your backend, because we protect it, because we're so intimately connected to everything, to really be able to give you a holistic view of what is your data protection footprint and what is your data posture, as the expression goes. So those are our high-level services. We deliver these services through not only Rubrik, of course, underneath to power it, but we have our own intellectual property. So then we called the Assured View. Assured View aggregates all the different components within the solution to be able to give us a full centralized view of what the data protection environment looks like, as well as providing back statistics. And really, we started this off as a simple tool internally to help us aggregate all of our customers into a single view. And it's really grown legs and become a thing that allows us to really pinpoint incidents within a backup infrastructure and be able to quickly find the remediation point of what those backup issues are. So in the event that there's been a credential change or an upgrade caused the service agent to stop, or whatever the issue is within the environment, we can quickly understand who has the problem, what the problem is, and what the remediation steps are. And this really allows us to extend a high level of service across a broad customer base, to make sure that we're not sacrificing quality as we continue to grow and continue to add more features and functionality within the environment. One of the main things that are provided, so we have an on-prem solution aside from the M365. The on-prem solution can protect standard on-prem workloads such as your VMware, Hyper-V, SQL, those kinds of solutions. The data can go off-site in multiple ways. We can drop that data off-site just up to a standard cloud provider, your AWS's, your Azures, and your Googles. We can also replicate that data to our data center as well, where we provide the disaster recovery as a service and business continuity services there. In our data center, we've got all those same hypervisors for the purposes of recovery, which allows us to provide like-to-like recovery. So when you're recovering your VMware in our environment, it's recovering through VMware. Same thing with Hyper-V and or Acropolis. What that allows is for much easier transition into what your permanent home is. We like to tell our customers that they're welcome to come and stay, but they eventually have to find some home to go. And we do that to keep our level of Switzerland, if you will, so that in the event that a customer needs to go somewhere else or decides they want to go somewhere else, there's nothing that's in our environment that's going to keep them from going there. So it gives you a lot of flexibility when you're in that uncomfortable place of being in DR, of knowing that we're here to help you to get to where your final destination is, whether it's back on-prem or into one of the hyperscale clouds or wherever you may be going. So we're there to help with any of those different components of it. We can go deep into this in some other conversation. I really like to focus on M365. So why protect M365? First and foremost, the main reason to protect any data is because data needs to be protected. Microsoft has long had a stance that they are not really liable for stuff that happens inside of their cloud. That seems to be changing. The landscape of that's changing as Microsoft's announced some of their own backup components. But what we have found is with any OEM backup, where you're supplying a tool that comes with the product, is generally the bare bones of what needs to be there. For those of you who are long in the tooth like myself, you may remember things like Windows backup from back in the day, which was very simplistic approach, very simplistic tools, and not really all encompassing of all the things that you need to be aware of. So this is an important thing to keep in the back of your hat when you're thinking about how am I going to protect my environment and what are the components behind protecting your Microsoft data and your team's data that's existing inside of that environment. So when you do a comparison against what Microsoft does versus what's provided by the service offering, They really limit the timeline for how much data you can protect within inside of that environment. You've got your inbox data that's limited out to 2 years before move to archive, deleted items for only 30 days, same as your auto archived environments as well. Junk data, which, believe it or not, some people actually want to keep their junk emails, can be important when you're looking at something was moved to junk by accident. Then you need to go dig it up and find it. How many times have you or I sent something really important to somebody and turns out it ended up in their junk mail? And then employee retention issues. So this happens a lot with litigation, employee satisfaction issues. Somebody leaves the company, being able to go back and pull emails from their account after they've long since been removed from O365 is a really strong tool for managing your data landscape and managing your data protection when you're talking about being in the cloud and in 365. What all is protected? Obviously, standard email protection is something that's industry standard. Everybody's covering within the environment. And I think one of the beauties of the service offering is the Rubrik SLA domain-driven protection. So when you're building out your policies for how you'd like to protect your email, you can define those policies based on frequency and time-based requirements. So you can have your hourlies, dailies, weeklies, monthlies, yearlies, for all of that backup option, and then determine how you want that data to be stored. Do you want it to go to long-term archive? Do you want it to be stored in a faster recovery point? All of those choices are available to you there, so you have a lot more direction of your data. You can sit over top of them and have some governance in terms of where that data goes and how that data gets moved along. Then, of course, the enterprise tools with Rubrik, where you really start to shine and grab differentiation against your Microsoft 365. Your enterprise tools offering your data threat analytics, sensitive data discovery, which dig into your OneDrive environments and I believe your SharePoint environments as well, to really tell you things like what are your change rates, what's been deleted, what's been moved, what's been added, and do a sensitive data discovery. Do I have people who have been storing PCI data in their OneDrive? Do I have people that are storing credit cards or social security numbers in their OneDrive? Being able to understand what's there and get your arms around what's been moved into that environment. Back in the I guess you could say the good old days, or maybe the not so good old days, when we had file service on-prem, it was much easier to do a quick search of those file drives and see what's there. But as things get more and more exposed and more available, understanding what we call our data posture or our cloud security posture, some of the new nomenclature that you might be hearing out in the industry, to really understand what is the risk of my data, what's out there in my data, what's potentially exposed, what OneDrive shares have been opened. That kind of information really kind of starts to give you a full understanding of the risk of your environment, as well as then having that data protected. So in the event you need to perform a recovery, you can get that process started and have the data recovered back into your environment. So at this point, I'd love to shift the conversation a little more deeper into M365. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass it over to Greg from Rubrik.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Get it shared out here real quick. So first of all, my name is Greg Hooper, and as I said earlier, I'm a solutions architect with Rubrik. I focus on our partnerships with service providers, and the number one service provider in the world for Rubrik is Assured Data Protection. So thank you, Andrew, for going through the awesome service that you guys provide. Thank you for the partnership with Choice Solutions as well, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. As Andrew pointed out, there's a responsibility matrix in the cloud, and we definitely see that Microsoft has a certain has kind of taken over what we're traditionally used to in the data center environment, and now we kind of have to shift a little bit. What I want to really talk about today is data protection of M365, of course, and Andrew did a great job of talking about why that's important. Why do we need that? Microsoft certainly has some things in the future that they're working on and that we're working on in partnership with them at Rubrik around their data protection. But today, as the responsibility matrix lays out, there's definitely a need at this point, for third-party providers, and Microsoft even recommends that in their statements, in their recommendations when you're doing business with them. One of the things that we see at Rubrik, is that across the 300 million users worldwide of M365, the data loss is a real thing. It's very unfortunate, but it's a real thing. And 85% of the users worldwide have seen some type of email breach. 71% have had their accounts taken over. So it's definitely something that we are watching and concerned about and developing against all the time. And the real question that we run into a lot is how do customers, when they're hit by a ransomware attack, respond, and when there's any inadvertent deletion of critical files. So a lot of the things that we look at Rubrik, number one, we have to protect the data. That's the core of our product, and that's what we do best. But beyond that, how do we go beyond backup and do things that really help mitigate ransomware, help mitigate some other threats that are out there, and really give you a sense of confidence that you can restore the data if and when. And we really assume that it's more of a when than an if when you're going to get breached. These days, these attacks are so automated, they're so prevalent that it's going to hit everybody at some point. And how do we protect against that? So just a little review here on some of that shift. So we're all familiar in the data center when a lot of these applications were still hosted on premise with the layers of security that we needed and that we still need today around these enterprise workloads. So the perimeter security, the network security, and so on, application security. And when this is managed by a provider or at the SaaS layer, things shift. And so it shifts to identity access, it shifts to authentication. So these are the attack vectors now for a SaaS-based workload, and where we have to shift our attention when it comes to protecting them. So defense in depth looks a little different in the Microsoft 365 environment. And so that identity layer, that authentication layer, is where the attack comes in at. That's one of the first things that we see that the attackers go after, is trying to get access to those, the high-level authentication method, so that they can get access to those underlying Microsoft 365 tools, and so that they can do some things like, shut down retention policies and delete data so that things can't be recovered. So what I'm going to, just walk through a quick, layout of a breach here. What's one of the first things we see? Core perimeter defenses are breached. The first thing the attackers are going to go after is that M365 global admin account. That's what they're going to want to try to compromise. And once they have a hold of that, they can exfiltrate data, pretty much with confidence at that point, because they can go in and they have command and control of the environment, and they can set some of those retention policies or all of those retention policies to delete data. So that's about the time you receive that ransomware note, and then something that looks like this unfortunately comes across. And what are your options at this point? So option one, restore from retention policy. Well, the problem is that retention policy could have been manipulated, to remove the data. So that's not always available to you. Could have been used to automatically delete. Option number two, if you do have stuff under litigation hold, it may be an option for you to recover from that, for sure, but that's not really what we consider to be a good backup solution. So some of your data may be there, some of your data may not. And again, that's something that for mass protection, using the native tools is cumbersome at best, and definitely maybe not comprehensive across the environment. So what are your options at that point? Contact Microsoft for restore. Probably not going to be able to help you in most cases. And so it's best effort at best. And then a lot of companies we see, unfortunately, end up paying the ransom at this point. So, and what we also see is that at the same time, in parallel, you could be having breaches going on in your cloud and data center. So really, when we take a look at native tools, the solution is not the best by itself. So one of the things that Rubrik has done is partner with Microsoft to come in and say, okay, Microsoft, you're doing a great job on those layers of perimeter security, network security, the retention policies, the litigation holds. Those are all wonderful things. With Rubrik, we can come in and provide an air-gapped security layer. We can come in and provide fast and bulk recovery of Microsoft data. And then we can put policy-driven, protection around all of that, so that, one of the things about a native protection inside of Microsoft is you have to go subscription by subscription. And when you've got a large environment and you've got to do that across lots of subscriptions, it can be very tenuous. So, one of the things that Rubrik provides is ease of management across an entire cloud environment for you. So with that said, the logical air gap there for Rubrik is something that's definitely of value, and allows us to not only protect the data, but as we go through the demo here, I'm going to show you some other things that we can do beyond backup. And just a glimpse here of what Microsoft and Rubrik together are working on. One of the things that we have a very tight relationship with Microsoft, and we're always working on how do we improve that, both from an M365 perspective, but in Azure Cloud in general. So with that, I'm going to jump over to the demo. So what you're looking at here is the Rubrik Security Cloud. So this is our control plane for pretty much everything that we do with Rubrik. I'm going to focus on M365 today, but just so you know, there's a lot more than M365 that we do at Rubrik. We basically can protect a lot of different types of workloads. So I'll jump over here real quick and show you what it looks like across the breadth of the platform. So we do things on premise with various hypervisors, and we extend into the cloud with Microsoft 365, but also we have the ability to protect Microsoft Entra ID, or what you may know as Azure Active Directory. Azure itself, we extend into Google Cloud and into AWS, and then we have a lot of options when it comes to protecting on-premise and cloud database workloads, NAS, Microsoft Exchange Server on-premise, and as you can see, just quite a few things. So across all of that, this dashboard, a set of dashboards, is how we give partners like Assured Data Protection access to our environment. There's a lot of different ways to control Rubrik. This would be one of the newest methods that we have, is through this single pane of glass with multi-tenancy and all the things that a MSP would need to do data protection for their customers. So, and of course, as Andrew pointed out, one of the things that makes Assured Data Protection our #1 service provider in the world is the innovative approach they've taken to extend even beyond what you see here and provide other tools from a front-end perspective to report to you the health of the environment, whether backups are happening on time, all the different things that Andrew was showing with Protect View and Assured View is definitely something that we're very excited about that they've developed. So from an M365 perspective, what does it look like? Basically, what happens in Rubrik is it's very simple. You come in and you add a subscription. And when you add that subscription to Rubrik, we basically go through and we select, what region that we want, and we add that subscription in, which is a very quick, just takes a few minutes type of a process. Once that is added in, we can instantly see in that subscription all the users in Exchange Online, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. We can dig into that and go in and see the users themselves. We can click on a user. If we want to do an individual restore of a user, we can do that. And what you see in Rubrik is always this calendar view when you go to do a restore. So this is a real simple way to pick what point in time series you want to do a restore from, and you go in and do a recovery. When you do a recovery with Rubrik, you can choose between mailbox, calendar, and contacts, and you can do a lot of different things here. So when we select this, we're actually hitting the APIs of Microsoft 365. We're digging into this user, what we've got protected for them, all the way down to an individual email. We can get in here and we can do a very granular type of recovery. We can recover the whole mailbox, the whole calendar, or we can cover individual emails from there. That's pretty much what a recovery looks like. Again, we can do the same thing for OneDrive, where we can go in and do the same type of approach and recover individual files. Same thing goes for SharePoint and Teams. In SharePoint, we've got sites. So in here, we can recover individual sites, or we can do a bulk recovery across a bunch of sites, however you want to do that. And Teams, same type of thing. We can go in and select different Teams objects to do recoveries. So that's pretty much how we do an M365 environment at a high level. Very simple. It's one of the easiest things that we have that we can set up in Rubrik. Very simple to do data protection across this. And Rubrik has a hosted environment where this data is saved. So essentially, it doesn't require any hardware in this solution here to do data protection. You essentially do the backups straight into Rubrik's hosted Azure environment, which is logically air-gapped away from the M365 subscription and gives you that layer of separation when it comes to making sure that there's an air gap there between the bad guys and the data. So essentially, that's how that works. One of the other things that I wanted to quickly talk about was the SLA domain and show you what that looks like, because Andrew was talking about that a little bit, and I wanted to show you a little bit of what he was saying. When it comes to policy management with Rubrik, it's very simple to go in and create an SLA domain. And in this case, I'm going to select M365. But as you can see, I can create an SLA for all these other objects, mix and match between them. However I want to do that, there's a ton of flexibility here. Once I select this, then it's just a matter of going in and choosing the time frame, as Andrew was saying, the actual time series that I want to protect the data. I can do a lot of different things here in terms of how I want to protect this and how long I want to keep it. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's that simple to go in and set up a policy, apply that to an M365 subscription, and then that policy governs that data and makes sure that it is backed up on time every day. And also it is, when the retention time comes, the data is removed as well. And we can do a lot of different things around these policies. They're very flexible. The other thing I wanted to talk about was from a security perspective. So Rubrik is not just a backup product anymore. That is definitely how we started with our core, but we've always been security focused in that one of the things that's very important to us is making sure that the data is air gapped. And so that when an attacker compromises a system, they can't go after your data as well. So one of the things that's big for us is going beyond backup, doing threat analytics on the data and doing a security posture. So I'm going to talk about both of those things real quick. So from a threat analytics point of view, we basically when we do a backup of the data, we take the data set itself and we crawl through that data to look for indicators of compromise, to look for threats, to look for suspicious activity, and basically notify on it, but also go one step beyond notification. We also give you the ability to recover intelligently from the data that we found. So when we do anomaly detection, if I go by object type here, by the way, you can see that OneDrive and SharePoint are workloads that I can do, threat analytics on. So as I pull this data into a Rubrik system, I can do threat analytics on this as well. I'm going to show you real quick what it looks like from a virtual machine point of view, because I happen to have some data on this. But essentially, when we do a protection on any object, we're able to see a lot of analytics around that, and we're able to browse even down to the layer that I want to go to see where this suspicious activity is going on. And we give you indication of how to do that here. it's very easy to get down to the bottom level here and see, in this case on a file share, I've had files that were encrypted and deleted, and we've marked it as suspicious because we've detected it as a lockbit variant. So these are the type of things that we can do by looking at the backup data each day, looking at the time series, looking at the changes, and basically indexing that and applying machine learning and intelligence across that to basically, and feeding in threat feeds as well, so that we're current on what's going on out there. This gives us the ability to now, if I want to come back and do a recovery on an object, basically I can do that just by going into the virtual machine in this case, selecting it, and doing a recovery. And one of the things that this allows me to do is I don't just recover by going out and trying to, I'm not recovering something and then trying to determine if it was clean or if it still had an infection in it. I can actually change my selected snapshot here, and I can go in and find where I see anomalous behavior in these snapshots, so that I can make, I definitely don't want to recover this one from 1015. Maybe I want to go back a different day and grab a different clean, snapshot and recover that. So that gives me the ability to do a smart recovery, or, what we call cyber resilience. And so from that perspective, then I can go in and I've got a lot of options when it comes to how I want to inspect that once it's recovered. Maybe I want to recover it into a sandbox environment where there's no network access, so that I can maybe I can use my front end scan tools, my EDR tools, to scan it and see if I can find where the infection is. The other thing I can do with Rubrik for that situation as well is I can do threat hunts. And with a threat hunt, I can threat hunt across the data. I can actually build a threat hunt that will go in. I can put a YAR rule. I can put a hash in there, and I can do a targeted threat hunt to look for a specific type of malicious software across that backup data, which gives me the ability to pinpoint it and quarantine it as well. None of these things affect the front end system. None of these things would interfere with an EDR product or an intrusion detection product. These are all back-end tools that look at the backup data, but give you another angle on how you might find some of these malicious activities in the environment. And then the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was data security posture and what that means. So this is really all around sensitive data, and what we can do with that. So again, as we're analyzing this metadata as it comes through our system during our backup activity, we're able to apply that against some built-in policies and against custom policies to look at sensitive data and categorize it. So this gives us the ability to really make some smart decisions when it comes to sensitive data as well. So I can go in here and I can basically create a policy. A lot of these come out of the box actually, but I can look at M365 accounts in OneDrive and in SharePoint, and I can run these policies across there to see if I've got anything in those environments that would be considered sensitive data. So if I go back to, see if I can show that to you. If you see here, I've got object types for OneDrive and SharePoint in here. And when I click on that, I can actually see, just by going through some of these users and hovering over what was found, the suspicious files, I can see here that I've got some hits on different policies that I've set up, that actually would, you want to make me, I've classified that data as sensitive, and maybe I might want to make some changes to move those things away from a particular user. So this gives me a little bit of insight into what the data type is, and maybe whether or not this user should have that type of data. With that, that's pretty much across the board some of the things that we can do with M365 that, obviously backup and data protection, recovery, cyber recovery. But again, with the security posture and the analytics added on, we can do several things beyond that. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to speaker here. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, guys, kind of to wrap this all back up. I mean, the big thing I think, and Andrew hit it on very early on, is right. Whenever you move to a cloud service, there's a responsibility that of what the provider is going to provide and what they're responsible for, which really comes down to the hardware, the infrastructure, some security aspect. But then you also have the layer above that, which is really your stewardship of the security posturing around the rest of that solution stack. And as we said, Microsoft has some tools that are built out there to help in terms of protection, anomaly, initial security threats, and they're all right. Right. I'm not saying that they're not doing their job, but the problem is that the threat actors today have gotten more and more sophisticated, more and more mature. And so as they continue to have that more sophisticated tool stack, we have to continue to evolve our tools to help forward and protect. And it really gets down to the point of it's not so much if, it's about identifying that you were compromised, being able to then roll back to a point in time where you're protected and can get back to your data in a timely fashion that doesn't impact the business. And those are the big key things here, right? One of the things that I think Greg touched on specifically is immutable storage as well, right? I mean, you talk about the air gap, but the other part of this is having immutable storage that you can't overwrite, delete, or get rid of until you've rolled past a specific date and time on the infrastructure. And that's one of the key tenets and aspects of what Rubrik's built on top of as well. So all these things are currently coming together to help really enhance that security posture. It's not just backup and DR anymore. It's really about helping to, that security posturing to address that big elephant in the room, which is ransomware attacks. And unfortunately, we're continuing to see, at least in our industry, more and more customers are going to get hit and targeted and compromised in the environment. Now, in most cases, where our managed service customers, particularly where we're running and deploying tools to help identify early and proactively, a lot of times we're able to identify this before it becomes a large-scale ransom attack. But again, even if it were to get to that point, we at least still have these air gapped and offsite solutions we can recover the business back to and not be down. I've talked to some customers who have been down. I actually had a prospective customer I was talking to. He'd been down for over 2 weeks. I don't know a lot of businesses that can still be in business to be down for 2 weeks, but I mean that's a real concern and challenge in today's environment, and those things are happening every day. Again, and in some cases we have looked at customers, Microsoft tenants. We've deployed some of our tools in it, and suddenly found that there was bad actors inside the tenant. Went out and cleaned that up and got it out of there. So there's a number of things you need to be aware of when you're looking at the posturing and tooling and what's out there and what these tools bring to the table that's enhancing that posture, that security, and that backup capability to ensure that, again, what's critical to your business, again, that OneDrive data that's out running around on everybody's device everywhere, on a laptop that's got some critical file that hasn't synced back up, your SharePoint, depending on how you're using your SharePoint libraries, again, making sure that data is you have control over at the end of the day. You're not relying upon Microsoft and the tools they're providing to guarantee the success of your organization and your business. So that's really the big pieces that I guess I would like to add on top of what Andrew and Greg have shared with us. And with that, I'll go ahead and wrap it up and turn it back over to Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you guys so much for sharing about the technology and the solutions. I'm going to take my VP of sales hat on. I'm going to put my partner hat on. We get a chance to, and we showed some of the technologies we work with, and we work with some disruptive technologies that are making huge impacts in people's businesses and education and healthcare. But let's be very real. The partnerships that if you can't protect the environment and you can't protect the data, the apps and that infrastructure don't matter. And so when we look at our partnerships with Palo Alto, Cortex, and Huntress Labs, but then we look at our backup and our backup provider, what we run our business on, which is Rubrik and AssureDP. And that's really, if we don't have those things, none of the other stuff matters. And so, like I said, what keeps us up at night is when we're educating and talking to other customers and understanding just really how at risk they are, and being able to bring solutions and services like AssureDP and Rubrik to the table. That it can be complex, but they help simplify, and they can even manage that as a service. So these are strategic relationships that make a huge impact of what we do and how we serve our clients, and not only how we run our business. So we're grateful for the partnership. We would love the discussion. So if we hit on anything, like I said, our choice team member is going to reach out. Give us a chance. Let's talk about 20 to 30 minutes. It's not a question that if and when. It's kind of like identity, your identity getting hacked. I mean, the reality is that these solutions is that we know it's going to happen. Something's going to get compromised at some point. It's just how quickly we're going to identify it and how quickly we can recover. And we'd love to have those conversations by bringing expertise like Andrew and Greg and their teams to the table to talk about that. So thank you for the opportunity. We consider it a privilege when people come and to our events. We try to bring meat and potatoes, make sure it's worthy of your time, but also too to make sure that we're bringing great content. So thank you for joining. We look forward to a follow-up discussion to talk about this in more detail, and also too hope that you guys all get a chance to enjoy the meats from Fairway Meats. Obviously, a great Midwestern company. So with that, we're going to close out. Best to you.